Hello guys. Before anything else, take a moment to settle in. And if you're awake right now, quietly comment below what time it is where you're listening from. Tonight, you're stepping into life inside a Victorian home during a harsh winter, a time when warmth had to be earned. Nights stretched long, and survival depended on routine, firelight, and preparation. You find yourself standing on a narrow street as winter presses in from every direction. The cold here is not sharp in the way modern cold often feels. It is heavier than that. It lingers. It settles into brick, stone, and wood, making everything feel slower, more deliberate. Snow has fallen earlier in the day, and though it has been trampled underfoot, it still clings to the edges of the street, piled against iron railings and doorsteps. The air is still. Your breath fogs faintly as you pause, surrounded by tall brick houses standing shoulder to shoulder. Their facades are darkened by soot and age, the result of years spent beneath coal smoke and winter storms. Curtains hang thick behind the windows, and through a few of them, you can see a faint, warm glow. Firelight, candlelight, signs of life holding back the cold. Winter in Victorian England is not merely a season. It is a presence. It governs the rhythm of the day, dictating when people rise, when they work, and when they retreat indoors. The sun sets early now, slipping below the rooftops long before the day feels finished. Darkness arrives quietly but decisively, bringing with it colder air and a deep, enveloping silence. You stand near the doorway of a modest home. Its door is solid wood, worn smooth by countless hands. A brass handle catches what little light remains, dull rather than polished. Snow has gathered along the threshold, pressed into shallow ridges by boots coming and going throughout the day. This is a house that has already been busy today, preparing for the long night ahead. The street behind you is quiet. Most of the day's movement has already passed. Workers returned home before dusk. Shopkeepers closed their shutters early. Children were called indoors long before darkness settled fully. Now, only the faintest sounds remain. A distant footstep, the soft creak of wood contracting in the cold, the far-off echo of a cartwheel moving slowly through snow. Gas lamps glow at intervals along the street. Their amber light spills downward in soft pools, barely reaching the ground beneath them. They do not banish the darkness so much as soften it, giving shape to the night without disturbing its calm. Snowflakes drift lazily through the lamplight, their descent unhurried, almost thoughtful. Winter here does not rush. It takes its time, knowing it will remain for months. You become aware of how still everything feels. Without engines, without electric hum, without constant noise, the night has room to breathe. Sound travels differently. Silence carries weight. Your coat, heavy and layered, protects you from the worst of the cold, but you can still feel it pressing in. It seeps through seams and settles against your skin, a reminder that warmth must be actively maintained in this world. There is no central heating humming quietly behind the walls. No thermostat waiting to be adjusted. Inside that house, warmth exists only if someone has worked to create it. The bricks beneath your feet are cold, even through the soles of your boots. They have absorbed the chill of the day and now release it slowly, storing winter in their mass. The buildings around you do the same. Victorian homes are solid, sturdy, and well built, but they are not insulated in the way modern houses are. Cold finds its way inside easily. This is why evenings are planned carefully. This is why fires are lit early, meals are prepared with intention, and doors are opened and closed quickly without lingering. Winter teaches efficiency. It teaches respect for warmth. You glance once more down the street. Most windows are dark now, their occupants already settled inside. A few still glow softly, signaling kitchens at work or families gathering in parlours. Somewhere nearby, you hear the faint clang of metal, perhaps a fire poker being adjusted or a kettle moved on a stove. Small sounds like these matter. They mean heat is being maintained. They mean the night is being faced properly. The wind moves gently through the street, not strong enough to howl, but persistent enough to remind you of its presence. It slips between buildings, curls around corners, and brushes past you before continuing on its way. You pull your coat closer instinctively, just as anyone living in this time would. Winter demands constant attention. In Victorian England, cold weather was responsible for more than discomfort. It affected health, work, and survival itself. Illness spread more easily in winter. Food spoiled or froze if not stored correctly. Coal supplies had to last through months of burning. A poorly managed fire could mean sleepless nights, or worse. Every household understood this. Children were taught early to respect the cold. Adults learned to read its signs. The way frost formed on the inside of windows. The way water froze in basins overnight. The way breath lingered longer in unheated rooms. You step closer to the door. From here, you can feel a subtle difference in the air. Not warmth exactly, but the promise of it. The wood of the door does not feel as cold as the stone around it. It has been touched, opened, closed. It has absorbed some of the heat from inside. Behind this door, the winter has been pushed back, at least for now. You imagine what waits on the other side. A narrow entryway, hooks holding coats and scarves, boots left to dry near the hearth, the scent of coal smoke mixed with fabric and food. A fire burning steadily, not loudly, but with purpose. But for the moment, you remain outside. This pause matters. Life in Victorian England is defined by thresholds between outdoors and indoors, work and rest, light and darkness. Crossing them is always intentional. There is no drifting casually from cold into warmth. You prepare yourself, even unconsciously, for the change. The door stands as a barrier between two worlds. Outside, the winter reigns fully. Inside, human effort pushes back against it. You take a final breath of cold air. It fills your lungs deeply, crisp and clean, carrying the scent of snow and smoke. It wakes the senses, sharpens awareness. In this world, moments like this are remembered because they're fleeting. Warmth is never guaranteed. You lift your hand toward the door, aware that once you step inside, the rhythm of the night will change. Sounds will soften, light will warm, time will slow. Behind you, the street continues in quiet stillness. Ahead of you, the Victorian home waits, ready to shelter its inhabitants from the long, unforgiving winter night. And as you prepare to cross the threshold, you understand something essential about life in this era. Every evening begins not with comfort, but with the cold, and every moment of warmth must be earned. Now you step inside, and the cold releases you slowly. The door closes behind you with a soft, solid sound, shutting out the winter night and sealing the warmth within. The difference is not immediate or dramatic. It does not rush toward you. Instead, it unfolds gently, as if the house itself needs a moment to recognize your arrival. The air inside feels heavier than the air outside. It carries warmth, yes, but also the accumulated presence of human life. The faint scent of coal smoke lingers, mixed with wool, leather, and the trace of food prepared earlier in the evening. This is not the sterile warmth of modern heating. It is layered, textured, and earned. You pause in the narrow entryway. Victorian homes are not designed with large, open foyers, meant to impress. Space is practical, shaped by necessity rather than display. Coats hang from sturdy hooks along the wall, thick with fabric and weight. Scarves are draped carefully to dry. Boots, damp from snow and slush, rest near the floor, positioned where they can absorb a little of the hearth's heat. The floor beneath your feet is cold at first. Even inside, winter has a presence. Heat does not reach every corner equally. It radiates outward from its source, and rooms closer to the fire feel different from those farther away. Victorian families understand this instinctively. They arrange their evenings around warmth, not convenience. You loosen your coat and feel your shoulders relax slightly. Layers are essential in this world. Clothing is not merely for modesty or fashion. It is a crucial defense against the cold. Undergarments are thick. Dresses and coats are heavy. Wool is prized not for comfort, but for survival. As you remove outer layers, the house begins to reveal its quiet rhythm. Somewhere deeper inside, a fire crackles softly, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. The sound of fuel being consumed at a measured pace. It is a reassuring sound, one that has signaled safety for thousands of years. Fire means light. Fire means warmth. Fire means life continuing through the night. The walls absorb the heat slowly. Brick and plaster hold warmth longer than thin materials, but they take time to warm fully. This is why fires are lit early, well before nightfall. By the time darkness settles outside, the home has already begun its long work of storing heat. You move further inside. The lighting is dim, but intentional. Candles and oil lamps glow softly, placed where they are needed most. Light is precious in winter. It must be conserved carefully. Lamps are positioned to illuminate tasks, not entire rooms. Shadows remain, shifting gently with every movement. The glow of firelight reaches you now. It spills from the parlour into the hallway, casting warm amber tones across the walls. The difference between the cold outside and the warmth here is not just physical, it is emotional. The body responds immediately, easing its vigilance, loosening its grip on tension. Victorian homes are sanctuaries in winter, not luxurious ones, but purposeful ones. Everything inside exists to support life during the harsh months. Furniture is arranged for proximity to heat. Rugs cover floors to trap warmth. Curtains hang thick and heavy, drawn tight against windows to block drafts. You notice the curtains first. They are not decorative in the modern sense. They are practical, often lined with additional fabric, sometimes even paper or felt. Windows are weak points in winter, allowing cold air to seep inside. At night, every window is sealed off as best as possible. Even so, frost sometimes forms on the inside of the glass. This is not unusual. It is accepted. You step into the main living space. The parlour is modest but carefully arranged. Chairs are positioned close to the hearth, angled inward. A small table sits within reach, holding books, sewing, or cups set aside earlier. Nothing here is wasted. Every object has a purpose, and that purpose is tied directly to comfort and efficiency. The fire itself is the heart of the room. It burns behind an iron grate, logs arranged with intention. Someone has tended it recently. You can tell by the way the embers glow evenly. by the absence of smoke spilling into the room. Maintaining a fire requires constant attention. Too little air, and it smoulders uselessly. Too much, and fuel is consumed too quickly. Coal or wood must last. Fuel is expensive, heavy, and essential. Victorian households plan carefully, especially during winter. Fires are kept steady rather than roaring. The goal is endurance, not spectacle. You feel the warmth reach your hands first. It spreads gradually, sinking into fingers stiff from the cold. Blood returns to places it had abandoned in defense against the winter air. The body remembers what safety feels like. This transition from cold to warmth defines daily life. Victorian families experience it multiple times a day, but it never becomes insignificant. Each return indoors is a small victory over the season. Each fire lit successfully is reassurance that the night will be faced properly. The sounds of the house grow clearer now. The faint rustle of fabric as someone shifts in their chair. The quiet clink of metal as a poker is adjusted. The subdued murmur of voices, low and unhurried. Winter encourages quiet. Energy is conserved. Loudness feels unnecessary. Conversation slows. People speak deliberately, aware of the limited light and long hours ahead. Even laughter is softer here, contained, respectful of the stillness outside. You take a seat near the fire. The chair is solid, worn smooth by years of use. It has been pulled close enough to absorb heat, but not so close as to be uncomfortable. Families learn these distances through experience. They know exactly where warmth gathers and where it fades. The heat settles into you now, not as a sudden rush, but as a steady presence. Your breathing slows, muscles ease. The cold that clung to you outside loosens its hold. Victorian evenings revolve around this moment. Once everyone is inside, once the fire is established, the night can begin properly. Meals are finished or warming. Tasks are planned. The household gathers, united by the shared goal of staying warm. You notice how still the room feels. There is no sense of urgency. Winter discourages unnecessary movement. Every step expends energy. Every task must justify itself. People sit when they can. They work with their hands while remaining close to the fire. Sewing, reading, mending. These activities are common not because they are hobbies, but because they are efficient. They allow productivity without exposure to the cold. Clothing is adjusted constantly. Layers are added or removed depending on proximity to the fire. Shawls are drawn tighter. Sleeves are rolled back slightly when hands grow warm. This constant awareness of temperature is second nature. Victorian homes do not maintain a uniform climate. Warmth exists in pockets. Near the hearth, the air is comfortable. A few steps away, it cools noticeably. Farther still, especially in hallways or unused rooms, the cold lingers. Bedrooms upstairs are often much colder than living spaces below. This knowledge shapes behavior. People spend evenings together near the fire, delaying the moment they must climb cold staircases to colder rooms. Nighttime routines are carefully timed to minimize discomfort. You glance toward the stairs. They rise quietly from the edge of the room, disappearing into shadow above. They will be climbed later, but not yet. For now, warmth is savoured. The fire shifts slightly as a log settles. The sound is soft, but noticeable. It draws the eye, if only for a moment. Fire commands attention without demanding it. Its movement is slow, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. This is why fireside evenings are remembered so fondly. They create a sense of safety that modern convenience cannot replicate. Here, warmth is visible. Its source is known. Its continuation depends on care and presence. Outside, winter continues without pause. Snow may still be falling. Wind may still be moving through the streets. But inside, the house holds firm. Brick walls block drafts. Curtains seal windows. Firelight pushes back the dark. You realize how much planning has gone into this moment. The fire was lit hours ago. Fuel was gathered earlier in the day. Meals were prepared with an awareness of how long heat would last. Nothing about this comfort is accidental. Victorian survival is built on foresight. Families do not wait for cold to arrive before preparing. They anticipate it. They organize their lives around it. Winter is faced with strategy, not resistance. You settle deeper into the chair. The warmth now feels complete, reaching your back, your legs, your hands. The cold is still present in memory, but no longer in your body. This contrast makes the comfort sharper, more meaningful. In this moment, you understand something essential about Victorian life. Warmth is not assumed. It is created, protected, and appreciated. And as the fire continues its steady work, the house closes in around its occupants, forming a small, resilient island of comfort. In the midst of a harsh and unforgiving season, you come to understand very quickly that the fireplace is not simply part of the room. It is the room. Everything inside this Victorian home is arranged in relation to the hearth. Chairs face it. Tables sit within its reach. Daily movement bends toward it instinctively, as if pulled by gravity. In winter, the fireplace is not decoration or comfort alone. It is survival made visible. You sit close enough to feel the heat on your skin. It radiates outward in slow waves, uneven but persistent. One side of your body grows warm, while the other remains cool, encouraging subtle shifts in posture. People here are always adjusting, leaning closer or drawing back, finding the balance between chill and heat. This constant awareness becomes second nature. The fire defines where you stand, where you sit, and how long you remain in one place. It determines when hands can be uncovered, when tasks can be attempted, and when rest becomes possible. In a Victorian winter, the hearth is the centre of time itself. Days begin and end around it. Morning starts not with light, but with fire. Someone rises early to stir embers left from the night before, coaxing warmth back into the room. Evening closes when the fire is banked carefully, its glow protected beneath ash so it will last until morning. Every household develops its own rhythms. You learn to read the fire without thinking. You notice when it needs attention, when fuel must be added, when airflow must be adjusted. The sound of it changes subtly as it burns. A soft crackle, a low murmur, the faint collapse of a settling log. These sounds are reassuring. They mean the fire is alive. You watch as someone tends the hearth. A poker is used gently, not aggressively. Logs are shifted with care, never wasted. Coal, if used, is placed deliberately. Every piece of fuel represents labour, carried, purchased, stored, and rationed. Nothing is burned without purpose. Winter fuel is one of the greatest expenses a Victorian household faces. Families plan months in advance, stacking coal or wood carefully, counting how long it must last. A poorly managed fire can mean a cold night, or worse, illness. This knowledge shapes behaviour. People do not leave the fire unattended for long. Children are taught early to respect it, not only because it can burn, but because it can fail. A fire allowed to die too soon creates work, discomfort, and danger. You notice how movement through the house follows invisible lines. paths lead toward the hearth and away from drafts. Tasks are brought closer to the fire rather than performed elsewhere. Sewing baskets are placed near chairs closest to warmth. Books are read where fingers will not stiffen. Even conversations cluster around the fire. Voices are quieter here, softened by the glow and the shared sense of refuge. Winter discourages excess. Words are chosen carefully, spoken slowly. Silence is not uncomfortable. It is welcomed. The fireplace also governs light. Firelight flickers across the room, illuminating faces, walls, and objects unevenly. Shadows dance and shift, changing the appearance of familiar things. This movement is gentle, never abrupt, and it encourages stillness rather than restlessness. Candles supplement the fire, but they are secondary. They are placed where firelight cannot reach, on tables, near doorways, beside staircases. But they are used sparingly. Wax and oil are valuable. The fire remains the primary source of both heat and illumination. You begin to understand how much knowledge is embedded in this space. The way logs are stacked, the tools kept nearby, the placement of furniture, all of it reflects generations of experience. These homes were shaped by people who knew winter well. In colder months, the fireplace never truly rests. Even when it burns low, even when the room is quiet, it remains present. Its warmth lingers in walls and floors, stored slowly, released gradually. The house itself becomes a kind of vessel, holding heat and protecting it from the cold outside. You feel this as you shift slightly in your seat. The chair absorbs warmth from the fire and passes it to you. The rug beneath your feet traps heat close to the floor. Everything here works together. The hearth also dictates the pace of work. Tasks are broken into manageable pieces that can be completed without leaving warmth for long. Water is heated and carried quickly. Food is prepared in stages, returning repeatedly to the fire. Even cleaning is done with efficiency, minimizing unnecessary exposure to cold air. Winter teaches patience. Nothing is rushed, but nothing is wasted. Time is measured differently when daylight is scarce and warmth is limited. Hours stretch, not because there is nothing to do, but because everything is done deliberately. You observe how the family gathers closer as night deepens. As the fire becomes the primary source of light, chairs are drawn inward. The room contracts around the hearth, becoming smaller, more intimate. This closeness is practical, but it also creates connection. People share warmth as well as space. Children sit near parents. Hands are warmed together. Stories are told softly. The fire becomes a shared focus, drawing attention inward rather than outward. In this world, entertainment does not compete with warmth. It arises from it. Reading aloud, quiet conversation, gentle music, these activities suit the fire's rhythm. Loudness feels unnecessary, even disruptive. The night invites calm. You notice how stillness deepens as the hours pass. The fire's glow becomes softer, redder. Shadows lengthen. Movements slow. Bodies respond naturally, conserving energy for the long night ahead. The hearth signals when it is time to settle. There is a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when the fire shifts from active warmth to sustaining warmth. At this point, no more fuel is added. The goal becomes preservation rather than growth. This transition is important. It marks the boundary between evening and night, between activity and rest, between wakefulness and sleep. You watch as embers are arranged carefully. Ash is drawn over glowing coals, protecting them from burning too quickly. Airflow is reduced just enough to keep the fire alive. This process is learned through experience, passed down within families. A well-banked fire is an act of care. It means the house will remain warmer through the night. It means morning will begin more easily. It means someone has thought ahead. The fireplace also influences how people move through the house at night. Trips away from it are planned carefully. Staircases are climbed with purpose. Doors are opened and closed quickly. Drafts are avoided. Heat is guarded. Bedrooms upstairs are colder, often significantly so. This is why fireside time is extended as long as possible, why evenings feel unhurried, why people linger near warmth even when tired. Sleep itself is shaped by the fire. People carry its heat with them, in warmed clothes, in heated bricks wrapped in cloth, in the lingering warmth absorbed by their bodies. The hearth prepares them for rest. You realize that in Victorian winter life, the fireplace is not just central, it is constant. It shapes architecture, behavior, relationships, and memory. People remember winters by the quality of their fires. They recall particularly cold seasons by how often they gathered close, how carefully fuel was rationed. The fire is a shared responsibility. Everyone contributes in some way, gathering fuel, tending embers, adjusting furniture, drawing curtains. Survival is collective, not individual. As you sit here, warmed and steady, the outside world fades further into distance. The winter night continues beyond the walls, but it no longer feels threatening. The hearth stands between the household and the cold, offering light, warmth, and reassurance. And in this quiet glow, you understand something deeply Victorian. Life in winter does not fight the cold. It organizes itself around warmth. As morning fades into afternoon, you begin to understand how deeply winter shapes every task inside the home. Nothing is casual. Nothing is automatic. Each chore is influenced by the cold, by the limited daylight, and by the simple fact that warmth must be protected at all costs. You wake to a house that is quieter and colder than it was the night before. The fire still lives, but only just. Its embers glow faintly beneath a layer of ash, holding on to warmth with careful restraint. The air in a room feels heavier now, cool enough that you notice it immediately as you move. Winter does not allow lingering in bed. The day begins when the fire is revived. Someone rises early. This is always the first chore of the winter day. Before washing, before eating, before anything else, the hearth must be awakened. Ash is shifted gently. Air is allowed back in. A small amount of fuel is added, never too much, just enough to coax the fire back into steady life. You feel the temperature change slowly. It takes time. Warmth does not rush through the house. It spreads patiently, reaching outward from the hearth in waves. Until it does, movement is brisk, efficient, purposeful. Water is needed next. In winter, even water becomes labor. It must be carried in, sometimes from an outdoor pump or shared source, sometimes from a basin inside that has grown cold overnight. Ice may need to be broken. Buckets feel heavier in winter, not because they weigh more, but because hands are stiffer, breath slower. You carry the water carefully. Spilling it would mean unnecessary exposure, unnecessary work. Every action is measured against effort. Winter demands conservation, of energy, of warmth, of time. Washing is done quickly. Faces and hands are cleaned with cold or barely warmed water. Full bathing is rare in winter, not from neglect, but from practicality. Heating enough water for a full bath requires fuel, time, and space near the fire. Instead, cleanliness is maintained in stages, focused on what is essential. Clothing is layered carefully. Each garment is chosen not for appearance, but for insulation. Wool underlayers, thick stockings, long sleeves. Clothes are often worn repeatedly before washing, especially in winter, because laundering requires water, heat, and drying time. All difficult when cold air dominates. Laundry does not stop in winter, but it slows. Clothes are washed less frequently and dried indoors when possible, hung near the fire or in rooms where warmth lingers. Damp fabric is unpleasant and dangerous in cold conditions. Care is taken to prevent it. You move through the house with purpose. Drafts are avoided instinctively. Doors are opened only when necessary and closed quickly behind you. Curtains remain drawn throughout the day, even when light is needed. The little sunlight winter offers must be balanced against heat loss. Daylight is precious. In Victorian winters, the sun rises late and sets early. Tasks are planned around its brief presence. Anything requiring clear vision is done while light is available. Sewing, mending, reading, and food preparation are often clustered into these hours. You feel time differently now. Without artificial light to extend the day freely, the rhythm of work follows the sky. Morning and afternoon blur together, both shaped by the slow arc of weak winter sun filtering through heavy clouds. Food preparation begins early. Winter meals require planning. Ingredients are drawn from storage, root vegetables kept cool and dry, preserved meats, bread baked earlier in the week. Fresh food is scarce. What is eaten has been grown, harvested, preserved, or purchased months before. The kitchen, if separate from the main living space, is colder. You move between rooms carefully, carrying tasks toward the fire whenever possible. Food is prepared near warmth to keep hands flexible and ingredients from freezing. Pots are kept close to heat, lids used to retain warmth and conserve fuel. Cooking is not constant. Instead, it happens in bursts, timed around the fire's strength. When the hearth burns hottest, water is boiled, stews are warmed, bread reheated. When heat dips, tasks pause. This rhythm becomes natural. Winter teaches patience through repetition. The same movements, the same routines, performed day after day. Comfort comes not from variety, but from familiarity. Cleaning continues despite the cold. Floors are swept regularly to keep dust and soot from accumulating. Ash from the hearth is removed carefully, often saved for other uses. Surfaces are wiped down, not obsessively, but thoughtfully. Cleanliness supports health, especially when windows remain closed for weeks at a time. Ventilation is limited. In winter, fresh air is a luxury weighed against warmth. Windows are rarely opened fully. Instead, brief moments of air are allowed in when necessary, often during the warmest part of the day. This balance is delicate. Too little air leads to stale rooms. Too much leads to cold. Families learn this balance through experience. Chores involving movement outside the home are done strategically. If coal must be fetched, if supplies are needed, trips are planned efficiently. Multiple tasks are combined into one outing. Exposure is minimized. When returning indoors, cold is shaken off quickly, coats removed, boots placed near the hearth. You notice how the house responds to these routines. It seems to settle into itself, adapting to the rhythm of work. Heat gathers where people spend time. Unused rooms grow colder, sometimes left unheated for days or weeks. This is not neglect, it is necessity. Victorian homes are lived in selectively during winter. Families occupy fewer rooms, concentrating life around the hearth. Bedrooms may remain cold until night. Parlours serve multiple purposes. Space is flexible, shaped by need. Children learn chores early. They are taught to fetch items, to tend small tasks near the fire, to help with preparation. Winter requires cooperation. No one remains idle for long, but no one is pushed beyond endurance either. Work is steady, not frantic. You feel the pace settle into your body. Tasks take longer, but they are not rushed. There is no pressure to do more than can be done comfortably. Winter enforces limits, and those limits are respected. The cold outside remains constant. It presses against walls and windows, reminding you that the warmth inside is temporary and must be maintained. This awareness underlies every action. Nothing is taken for granted. Even small chores feel significant. Folding cloth, stacking fuel, setting items near the fire, all contribute to comfort later. Every action has a future purpose. You begin to appreciate how winter sharpens attention. In warmer seasons, tasks might be scattered, delayed, or forgotten. In winter, everything matters. Every log placed correctly, every curtain drawn tightly, every pot covered properly contributes to survival. As daylight fades again, the day's chores slow. There's a natural point when work transitions into rest, not because tasks are finished, but because light is gone and energy must be preserved. Winter evenings are not meant for productivity. They are meant for recovery. You feel this shift. Hands grow tired. Movement becomes slower. The fire is tended one more time, adjusted for evening. Items used during the day are gathered and placed within reach for the night ahead. The house prepares itself. Chores give way to quiet presence. The labour of winter does not end, but it pauses, allowing warmth and stillness to take over. And as you settle near the hearth once more, you realise something essential about daily life in a Victorian winter. Survival is not dramatic. It is built quietly, through small, careful actions repeated every day, shaped by cold, guided by light, and sustained by routine. As the winter settles deeper into the season, you begin to understand that food in a Victorian home is never separate from fuel. One depends entirely on the other. Nothing is eaten without considering the fire. Nothing is cooked without thinking ahead. In winter, food is warmth made tangible, and every meal is shaped by the limits of cold, time, and energy. You stand near the hearth as preparations begin. The fire has been tended carefully throughout the day, allowed to grow strong enough now to support cooking. Its heat is steady, not fierce. Victorian winter meals are rarely elaborate, not because of lack of skill, but because fuel must be used wisely. Every log burned must justify itself. The kitchen space feels warmer now, though still cooler than a modern room would be. Pots are brought closer to the fire, lids kept firmly in place to trap heat. Steam rises slowly, drifting upward, before disappearing into the dim air above. Food here is built on preparation done long before winter arrived. Vegetables pulled from the ground months ago. Meat salted, smoked, or preserved. Bread baked in larger quantities and eaten over several days. Nothing fresh is expected. What exists has been saved, stored, and protected. You notice the careful order of it all. Root vegetables are taken from storage. Potatoes, turnips, carrots. Still firm, still useful, thanks to the cold that preserves them. They're cleaned quickly, hands stiffening as they work. then move toward warmth as soon as possible. Winter discourages excess handling. Food preparation is efficient, practiced, unhurried. Knives move steadily. Surfaces are kept clear. Waste is minimal. Every peel, every scrap has value, either for stock, animals, or later use. The fire determines what can be cooked. Long simmering meals are favoured: stews, broths, porridges, dishes that require time rather than intense heat. These meals make use of steady warmth, allowing flavours to develop slowly while conserving fuel. You smell it before you see it. A deep, earthy aroma rises from the pot. It is comforting, familiar. Winter meals smell of sustenance rather than indulgence. They promise fullness, not excess. Cooking is often communal. Family members gather nearby, not only to help, but to stay warm. Tasks are shared: stirring, chopping, carrying. The kitchen becomes another extension of the hearth, another place where warmth draws people together. Bread is treated with respect. It is sliced carefully, never wasted. Crumbs are saved. Stale pieces are repurposed. In winter, bread represents stability. Its presence reassures. Its absence is deeply felt. Fuel use is constant in the mind. Every cooking decision considers how long the fire will burn, how much heat remains, how many tasks can be completed before fuel must be added. Nothing is done without awareness of the hearth's limits. Even boiling water matters. Water is heated for cooking, for washing dishes, for warming hands. Pots are reused. Heat is shared. A pot removed from the fire may be replaced immediately by another, ensuring no warmth is lost unnecessarily. Winter meals are filling by design. They rely on fats when available, on grains and vegetables that sustain rather than excite. Meat, when present, is stretched across meals, used sparingly to add flavour rather than bulk. You notice how food is eaten, slowly, appreciatively, often in silence, broken only by quiet conversation. Eating is not rushed. It is a pause, a moment of shared warmth. The table is set close to the fire. This is not accidental. Food cools quickly in winter, and warmth must be preserved as long as possible. Plates are warmed if possible. Serving vessels remain near heat. Candles provide light, but the fire provides comfort. As the meal progresses, the room grows quieter. Movement slows. Bodies relax. The day's labour gives way to nourishment. Winter meals serve more than hunger. They restore energy spent fighting the cold. They signal safety. They mark the transition from work to rest. You notice how much planning has gone into this moment. Food was prepared earlier in the day to minimize evening effort. Ingredients were chosen for their ability to cook slowly. Fuel was saved for this time. Nothing about this meal is spontaneous. Even dessert, if present, is simple. Apples baked slowly near the fire. Pudding prepared in advance. Sweetness is modest, meant to comfort rather than overwhelm. After the meal, nothing is wasted. Leftovers are stored carefully. Pots are scraped clean. Bones are saved. The fire, still warm, is used for as many tasks as possible before it is allowed to burn lower. Washing dishes is done quickly. Water is heated once more, reused where possible. Cloths are wrung out and dried near the fire. Nothing is left damp. Dampness invites cold, and cold invites illness. Food storage is checked. Pantries are inspected, supplies counted mentally. Winter encourages constant awareness of what remains. Families know how many days of food they have, how long fuel will last, how carefully they must ration. This awareness does not create anxiety. It creates discipline. You feel it in the atmosphere of the home. Calm, not because life is easy, but because it is understood. Winter is not a surprise. It is expected, planned for, managed. Meals anchor the day. Breakfast restores warmth after the night. Midday meals provide strength for chores. Evening meals signal the approach of rest. Food structures time as much as light does. You realize that winter meals are not simply eaten, they are earned. Each one represents hours of labor, months of preparation, and careful use of resources. This gives them weight and meaning. As the fire begins to settle lower again, the meal draws to a close. People linger near the hearth, letting warmth linger in their bodies. Cold staircases and unheated rooms wait patiently above, but there is no rush to face them yet. The kitchen quiets. Pots are set aside. Utensils return to their places. Everything has its location, chosen for ease and efficiency. The house feels heavier now, fuller. Warmth and food combine to slow the body. Muscles relax. Breathing deepens. Winter nights encourage this response, guiding people naturally toward rest. You sense how deeply intertwined food and fuel are. Without one, the other loses its meaning. Food without heat cannot be prepared. Heat without food serves no purpose. Together, they sustain life. And as you sit near the hearth, satisfied and steady, you understand something fundamental about winter life in a Victorian home. Survival is not dramatic or heroic. It is built quietly, meal by meal, fire by fire, through careful preparation, shared labor, and respect for the limits of the season. As the day fades fully into night, the house begins to change its rhythm. The work of the afternoon has ended, not because everything is finished, but because winter does not allow endless effort. Light has withdrawn from the windows, leaving only darkness beyond the glass. What remains now is the interior world, shaped by firelight, candlelight, and habit. You feel the shift immediately. Movement slows without instruction. Voices soften naturally. Even the air seems to settle, growing still, as if aware that the most active hours have passed. Winter evenings are not announced by clocks or schedules. They are felt. The fire has been adjusted for this time of night. It burns lower now, steady and dependable, no longer fed aggressively. The flames are smaller, but the embers glow deeply, casting a warm, steady light across the room. This is the fire meant to last, not to impress, but to endure. Candles are lit carefully, not all at once. One, then another, placed where they are most needed. Light is added thoughtfully, never wasted. Shadows remain welcome companions, softening the edges of furniture and walls. The room feels smaller now, more intimate. Furniture that seemed ordinary during the day takes on new shapes in the evening glow. Chairs appear closer together. Corners deepen into shadow. The ceiling fades upward into darkness, giving the space a sense of enclosure and safety. You settle into a seat near the hearth. It is here that most evenings are spent, not because there is nowhere else to go, but because warmth dictates comfort. The body knows where it belongs in winter. Hands are warmed briefly, then withdrawn. They rest in laps or on armrests, fingers slowly loosening after a day of work. Shawls are adjusted, sleeves pulled down. Small movements that speak of ease rather than urgency. Conversation drifts gently. It does not dominate the room. It fills pauses rather than erasing them. Stories may be shared, not dramatic ones, but familiar ones, repeated often enough to be comforting. Memories of past winters, small observations from the day. Silence is common. It is not awkward. It is expected. Winter evenings encourage inward attention. Thoughts wander slowly. The fire provides enough movement for the eyes, enough sound for the ears. Reading becomes a favored ritual. A book is opened carefully, pages catching candlelight unevenly. Reading may be done aloud or quietly, depending on the household. Voices are low, measured, chosen to match the hour. Books in Victorian homes are not consumed quickly. They are read slowly, revisited often. A single volume may occupy many evenings, its familiarity becoming part of the household's winter rhythm. Sewing and mending often accompany reading. Hands move gently, guided more by memory than sight. The work is repetitive and calming, stitching, repairing, reinforcing garments that must last through the season. These tasks are not burdensome. They offer a sense of control in a world shaped by cold and limitation. Each repaired seam represents future warmth. Each completed task reduces uncertainty. Children sit nearby. They may listen quietly, play small games, or simply rest. Winter evenings do not encourage excessive activity. Energy is conserved, guided toward rest rather than excitement. As the hours pass, the house grows quieter. Footsteps are rare now. Doors remain closed. The outside world feels distant, almost irrelevant. Wind may brush against the walls. Snow may continue to fall. But inside, the atmosphere remains calm and contained. You notice how time stretches. Without bright lights or constant stimulation, minutes lengthen. Evenings feel expansive rather than rushed. There is no pressure to fill them. Being present is enough. The fire continues its slow work. Its light flickers gently, creating patterns that repeat without boredom. Watching it requires no effort. The eyes rest easily, following movement without expectation. This is one of the hearth's greatest gifts. It occupies attention without demanding it, allowing the mind to drift safely. Candles are watched carefully. As wax shortens, flames are adjusted. Some candles are extinguished when no longer needed, their smoke rising briefly before fading. Light is balanced against need. Victorian households are acutely aware of resources. Even in quiet moments, this awareness remains. But it does not feel oppressive. It feels respectful. The house itself seems to respond to the evening. Wood settles as temperatures shift. Soft creaks echo faintly, then disappear. These sounds are familiar, comforting. They remind you that the house is alive in its own way, adjusting to the cold outside. You draw closer to the fire without thinking. Everyone does. Chairs shift subtly over the course of the evening, inching nearer to warmth. This movement is gradual, almost unconscious. The room contracts around the hearth. By now, only the most essential light remains. Candles near the fire glow steadily. Shadows dominate the edges of the room, blurring boundaries and softening shapes. The world outside the windows no longer exists in detail. It is simply dark, and that darkness no longer feels threatening. It feels like distance. Evening rituals bring comfort through repetition. The same actions occur night after night. Tending the fire, adjusting curtains, settling into familiar seats. These routines are anchors, offering predictability in a season defined by uncertainty. You feel how your own body responds. Breathing slows, muscles relax, thoughts become less structured, more fluid. The mind releases the need to plan or analyze. This is not idleness. It is recovery. Victorian winter life demands physical and mental resilience. Evening rituals are not indulgences. They are necessary pauses that allow endurance. As the night deepens, conversation fades further. Voices lower until they are barely above the fire's murmur. Words are chosen carefully, then abandoned altogether when silence feels better. You sit in this quiet without discomfort. The The fire remains the focal point, steady and reliable. Its warmth seeps into your bones, carrying the promise that the night will be faced successfully. Outside, winter continues its slow advance. Snow deepens. Temperatures drop. But inside, the house holds firm, its inhabitants sheltered by walls, fire, and habit. This is the hour when evenings turn inward, thoughts drift toward rest, tasks are mentally reviewed and then set aside. Tomorrow will bring its own work, but tonight belongs to stillness. You feel gratitude without naming it. Gratitude for warmth, for light, for routine, for the quiet understanding shared among those gathered near the hearth. Victorian evenings do not strive for entertainment. They offer something quieter, something deeper, a space where the body and mind are allowed to slow together. As the fire burns lower and the candles shorten, the house prepares itself for the night ahead. And you understand something essential about these winter hours. They are not empty. They are carefully shaped pauses. Moments of calm that make endurance possible. Guided by firelight, softened by shadow, and held gently within the walls of the home. As the evening draws closer to its end, the house begins to prepare itself for the night. This transition does not happen suddenly. There is no clear moment when evening becomes night. Instead, the change arrives gradually, guided by habit, temperature, and the slow dimming of firelight. Winter nights are long, and they require careful preparation. You feel the shift in the air first. The warmth near the hearth remains, but beyond it, the house cools noticeably. Shadows deepen. The silence grows heavier, more complete. This is the hour when movement becomes intentional, when every step has purpose. The fire is tended one last time. Someone rises quietly to adjust it, knowing exactly how much heat will be needed through the night. Too much fuel, and it will burn out too quickly. Too little, and the house will grow cold before morning. Ash is drawn carefully over glowing embers, protecting them, slowing their burn. This is a practiced skill. In Victorian homes, knowing how to bank a fire is essential knowledge, passed down through generations. A well-banked fire is a promise. That morning will come with warmth already waiting. Candles are extinguished selectively. Those no longer needed are snuffed out, their thin trails of smoke curling briefly before fading into darkness. Only a few remain, placed where they will guide movement through the house without wasting light. You become aware of how quiet everything feels now. Voices have faded completely. Even small sounds seem amplified. The soft brush of fabric, the gentle creak of a floorboard, the distant settling of wood as the house responds to falling temperatures. Preparing for sleep in winter is not casual. It is deliberate, thoughtful, and shaped by necessity. Every action now is aimed at preserving warmth for the long hours ahead. You move toward the staircase. It rises into darkness, colder than the rooms below. Heat travels upward slowly, and in winter, it rarely reaches the upper floors fully. The first steps feel noticeably chill beneath your feet. You climb carefully. Candles cast narrow pools of light along the walls, just enough to guide the way. Shadows stretch and bend with each movement. The warmth of the parlor fades behind you, replaced by cooler air that encourages efficiency. Bedrooms await. They're quieter, darker, and colder than the living spaces below. Windows here are tightly curtained, sometimes covered with additional fabric to block drafts. Even so, frost may form along the glass overnight. This is expected. You enter a bedroom prepared for winter. The bed dominates the room. It is sturdy, heavy, and carefully arranged. Bedding is layered generously: sheets, blankets, quilts, coverlets, each chosen not for softness alone, but for insulation. Beds in Victorian winters are not minimal. They are built like shelters. You notice how thick the bedding is. Multiple blankets are stacked carefully, each contributing warmth. Feather-filled quilts trap heat efficiently. Woolen layers add weight and protection. The combined effect is substantial, reassuring. Sometimes beds are shared. Children sleep together for warmth. Siblings are placed side by side. In smaller homes, entire families may sleep in close proximity. Privacy is secondary to survival in winter. This closeness is practical, not sentimental. Shared warmth reduces fuel use and increases comfort. Bodies generate heat, and winter encourages people to rely on it. You see warming tools prepared nearby. Hot bricks, heated by the fire and wrapped in cloth, are placed beneath blankets. Metal warming pans may be used briefly to heat sheets before being removed. These small efforts make a significant difference during the coldest nights. Clothing is adjusted for sleep. Nightwear remains layered. Caps or scarves may be worn to bed to prevent heat loss through the head. Socks are common. Skin is rarely exposed unnecessarily. Victorian sleepwear is not about freedom of movement. It is about conservation. You feel the weight of the bedding as you settle in. It presses gently against your body, holding warmth close. This weight is comforting, grounding. It signals safety in a world where cold is always present. The room is dim now. Only the faintest glow remains from a candle or the distant fire below. Shadows fill the corners completely. The ceiling disappears into darkness. Outside, winter continues its quiet work. Snow may be falling. Frost may be forming. Wind may brush against the house. But inside, the bedroom is sealed against the night as best as possible. You notice how still everything becomes. Movement slows to nothing. Breathing deepens. The house enters a state of rest. Victorian nights are long. Without electric light to blur boundaries, darkness stretches fully from evening until morning. Sleep often comes in segments, drifting off, waking briefly, then resting again. This is natural and accepted. There is no pressure to sleep deeply or immediately. Rest is understood as something that unfolds gradually. The fire below continues to burn low. Its warmth rises slowly through the house, faint but present. The knowledge that it remains alive offers reassurance. Morning will not begin from complete cold. You become aware of the quiet sounds of the night, the house settling, a distant ember shifting, the faint hum of wind beyond thick walls. These sounds are familiar, not alarming. They form the backdrop of winter rest. You lie still beneath the layers. The cold no longer presses against you directly. It exists outside the bedding, outside the room, beyond the walls. Here, warmth is contained and protected. Thoughts drift gently. The day's work fades. The effort of chores, meals, and tending the fire recedes into memory. What remains is the simple act of resting, of allowing the body to recover. Victorian winter nights demand this rest. Without it, endurance would fail, strength would fade, illness would take hold. Sleep is not a luxury here. It is essential. You feel gratitude for the preparations made, for the fire carefully banked, for the bedding thoughtfully layered, for the routines that transform cold into manageable discomfort rather than danger. The house holds you quietly. Its walls insulate. Its floors support. Its structure shields against the elements. Generations of knowledge are embedded in its design, guiding winter life even now. Your breathing becomes slow and even. The weight of blankets encourages stillness. Muscles release the tension held throughout the day. The cold becomes distant, abstract. Winter no longer feels like something to fight. It feels like something to endure, calmly, patiently, with preparation and care. As sleep approaches, you understand something deeply Victorian about these nights. They are not empty hours to be rushed through. They are long, quiet spans of rest, made possible by careful planning, shared warmth, and the steady presence of the hearth below. And as you drift towards sleep, the house continues its quiet vigil, standing firm against the winter, carrying you safely through the longest hours of the night. The house sleeps. Not all at once, and not completely, but in the quiet, layered way that winter demands. Every room settles into stillness at its own pace, guided by fading warmth, dim light, and the long hours stretching ahead. You rest beneath thick bedding, aware of the house around you without seeing it. Its walls hold steady against the cold outside. Its floors cool slowly as the fire below burns lower. The structure itself seems to breathe, contracting gently as temperatures drop, releasing soft creaks and murmurs that blend into the silence. Winter has claimed the night fully now. Beyond the windows, darkness lies deep and unbroken. Snow may still be falling, softening the world further, smoothing edges and muting sound. Frost gathers where it can, tracing delicate patterns along glass and stone. Inside, the cold presses inward patiently. It does not rush. It waits. The warmth you feel now is the result of hours of preparation, days of routine, and generations of knowledge. It lingers in your body, held by layered blankets and shared air, a fragile but determined barrier against the season. This is what endurance feels like. Not triumph, not comfort without effort, but steady balance, maintained carefully, moment by moment. You lie still and think, though your thoughts move slowly. Winter encourages reflection, not because people seek it, but because movement becomes unnecessary. The mind, like the body, learns to conserve energy. Thoughts stretch out, soften, drift. You become aware of how routine sustains life here. The same actions repeated each day, tending the fire, preparing food, drawing curtains, layering clothing, create stability in an unstable environment. Nothing dramatic changes from one winter day to the next, and that sameness is a gift. It allows endurance. Victorian winters are not brief interruptions. They are seasons that reshape life for months at a time. They demand patience, cooperation, and acceptance. People do not wait for winter to end before living. They adjust, adapting their rhythms to its presence. You feel this acceptance now. The cold outside no longer feels like an enemy. It is simply part of the world, something to be acknowledged rather than resisted. Warmth exists, not because winter is defeated, but because people work with its limits. The fire below continues its quiet glow. It is no longer a flame, but a presence. Embers protected beneath ash, releasing heat slowly into the night. Its light no longer reaches you directly, but its warmth does, carried upward through the house. This knowledge brings comfort. Morning will not begin from complete cold. There will be warmth waiting, however modest. The fire will be revived. The day will begin again. Sleep comes in waves. You drift toward it, then surface briefly, aware of the quiet around you. This is natural. Victorian sleep often unfolds this way, shaped by darkness rather than clocks. Night is not a single event to be conquered, but a long span to be inhabited. In these waking moments, you listen. The house speaks softly, a beam settling, a distant ember shifting, the faint whisper of wind beyond the walls. These sounds are familiar, reassuring. They remind you that the structure remains strong, that the night is progressing as expected. You feel the presence of others in the house, even if they are asleep. Shared walls, shared air, shared warmth. Winter brings people closer, not only physically, but in awareness. Everyone depends on the same fire, the same routines, the same preparations. Endurance here is collective. No one faces winter alone, even in silence. You think of the days that came before this night. The chores completed despite the cold. The meals prepared carefully. The fire tended patiently. Each action small on its own, but together forming a system that sustains life through the season. This is resilience. Not dramatic strength, but quiet persistence. The ability to continue without excess, without complaint, guided by knowledge and habit. Victorian life in winter is shaped by this understanding. There is no expectation of ease. Comfort is appreciated because it is not constant. Warmth is valued because it is fragile. Rest is meaningful because it is earned. You feel gratitude again, subtle and unspoken, for the bed that holds you, for the blankets that trap warmth, for the house that shelters, for the fire that continues its quiet work. Outside, winter remains unchanged. Snow covers streets and fields alike. Trees stand bare against the sky. The world waits, paused beneath cold and darkness. Inside, time moves differently. Hours stretch without urgency. The night does not need to be shortened. It will pass when it passes. Your breathing grows slower. The weight of the bedding presses gently, encouraging stillness. Muscles release fully now, no longer holding the tension of the day. Thoughts soften further, losing edges. You understand now why winter evenings and nights were so deeply woven into memory for people of this era. Without constant distraction, these hours became spaces for rest, for reflection, for quiet awareness of life continuing despite hardship. The long Victorian winter is endured not by resisting it, but by adapting fully to its presence. Homes become smaller, lives become quieter, needs become clearer. And within these limits, stability is found. You drift again, closer to sleep. The house remains awake in its own way, guarding warmth, holding structure, waiting patiently for morning. It has done this before. It will do it again. Generations have passed through nights like this. Different faces, different names, but the same routines. The same fires banked carefully. The same blankets layered thoughtfully. The same quiet acceptance of winter's reach. You are part of that continuity now, resting, enduring, trusting in the systems that make survival possible. The cold outside presses on, but it cannot reach you here, not tonight. As the hours pass, the fire continues to glow faintly, the house continues to shelter, and winter continues its long, slow season. And in this stillness, you understand the final truth of Victorian winter life. Endurance is not loud. It is gentle, deliberate, and steady, built from routine, shared warmth, and the quiet confidence that morning will come. You rest, the house sleeps, and winter waits, held at bay by care, habit, and the soft glow of a fire that refuses to go out. The fire burns quietly below, steady and patient. The house remains still, holding its warmth close, and the long Victorian winter carries on beyond the walls, calm and unhurried. If you're still awake, you can let your thoughts drift without direction. There is no need to follow them anywhere. They can come and go like the soft glow of embers, appearing briefly before fading again. And if sleep has already found you, this warmth will remain. The quiet will remain. The night will pass gently, just as it always has. For now, rest here. Let the fire continue its low, steady watch through the hours ahead. Let the cold remain outside, where it belongs. Good night, Saim Beach. On. Chiu. Sleep parfi parmisai. Harm. Well, by the fireside.